If you think giant chickens are just for looks, you're about to be proven completely wrong, because some of these massive birds lay eggs almost every single day, and one of them shocked me the most. Brahma. I've personally raised Brahma chickens, and the first thing that hits you is just how massive they are in real life. These birds look like something out of a different era, especially with their feathered legs and calm, almost majestic posture. What surprised me the most is that despite their size, they're actually very gentle and easy to manage in a backyard setup. When it comes to eggs, I didn't expect much at first, but mine consistently laid around 3 eggs per week. That might not sound crazy, but for a bird this big, it's honestly impressive. Another thing I noticed is that they lay really well during colder months, when most other chickens slow down. That alone made them incredibly valuable in my flock. They're also not very aggressive, so I never had issues mixing them with other breeds. If you want a giant chicken that actually contributes with eggs, Brahmas are absolutely worth it. Jersey Giant. I remember the first time I saw a Jersey Giant in my coop, and it genuinely looked unreal compared to my other chickens. These birds are huge, and you feel it when you pick them up. They're heavy. From my experience, they take a bit longer to mature, so you have to be patient before they start laying. But once they do, they're surprisingly consistent for such a large breed. Mine averaged around 4 eggs a week, which exceeded my expectations. They also have a very calm personality, which made handling them super easy. One thing I learned quickly is that they eat more than smaller breeds, so feed costs can go up. Still, I found that trade-off worth it because of their size and decent egg production. They also handle cold weather really well, which is a big plus. Overall, Jersey Giants feel like a perfect balance between size and productivity. Cochin. Cochins are probably the fluffiest chickens I've ever owned, and honestly, they almost don't look real. When I first got them, I thought they'd be more for show than for egg production. From my experience, they're not the most productive layers, but they still give you a steady supply if you're patient. Mine laid about 2 to 3 eggs per week, which adds up over time. What really stood out to me is how friendly they are. They're easily some of the most docile birds in my flock. They're great if you want chickens that you can actually interact with regularly. Because of all those feathers, they do require a bit more care, especially in wet conditions. But I found that their calm nature made up for the extra maintenance. They also go broody quite often, which can be a bonus if you want to hatch chicks. For me, Cochins are more about the experience, with eggs as a nice bonus. Orpington. Orpingtons quickly became one of my favorite breeds after I raised them for a full season. They're big, round, and have this soft, almost puffy look that makes them stand out. What I really liked is how balanced they are between size and egg production. In my setup, they consistently gave me around 4 to 5 eggs per week, which is excellent. They're also extremely friendly, and mine would follow me around the yard like pets. That made daily care feel a lot more enjoyable. I also noticed they adapt well to different climates, which makes them very beginner-friendly. Feed consumption is moderate, not as high as some other large breeds. Another thing I appreciated is how reliable they are over time. They didn't have huge drops in production. One thing I started paying attention to is how well they handle confinement versus free ranging, and in my experience, they do great in both setups. They're not overly aggressive when it comes to food, which helps keep the flock balanced. I also notice their eggs are usually medium to large in size, with a nice light brown color that people love. Over time, they became one of the most dependable breeds I had, especially when I needed consistent egg supply. If I had to recommend one large breed for both eggs and personality, Orpingtons would be near the top. Australorps completely changed my expectations when it comes to egg production from larger chickens. When I first added them to my flock, I didn't think they would outperform some of my other breeds, but they did. From my experience, these birds are incredibly consistent layers, often giving me close to an egg a day. That's something you don't usually expect from a chicken of their size. They also have a calm temperament, which made them easy to integrate with the rest of my flock. One thing I noticed is that they're very low maintenance compared to other breeds I've raised. They handle both warm and cooler weather without major issues. Feed efficiency was also better than I expected, which helped keep costs down. Visually, they might not be as giant-looking as Brahmas, but they still have a solid, heavy build. For me, Australorps were the biggest surprise in terms of performance. Over time, I realized they're also very predictable, which is something every chicken keeper appreciates. They don't have sudden drops in egg production, unless something is really off. I also noticed their eggs tend to be consistently large and strong-shelled, which is great if you're selling or storing them. Another thing I liked is that they're not overly noisy, which makes them perfect for backyard setups. As I kept working with them, they became one of the most efficient and low-stress breeds I've ever had. If your goal is maximum eggs with minimal hassle, Australorps are honestly hard to beat. Sussex. I've had Sussex chickens in my flock for quite a while, and they quickly proved to be one of the most reliable breeds I've worked with. They're not the absolute biggest birds out there, but they still have a solid, heavy build that gives them that large chicken presence. What really stood out to me is how consistent they are with egg production throughout the year. In my experience, they regularly gave me around 4 eggs per week, sometimes even more under good conditions. They're also very curious and active, which makes them excellent for free-ranging setups. I noticed they spend a lot of time foraging, which actually helped reduce my feed costs over time. Another thing I appreciated is how hardy they are. They handled both hot summers and cold days without major issues. Their temperament is also a big plus, since they're calm but not overly lazy. Over time, they became one of those breeds I could always count on, no matter the season.